Hello folks, welcome to a new working week. Hope you're doing well. Hope your weekend went quite well. I had a good time, was out with friends, stuff like that. Was suffering for it yesterday, and for some reason I think I've come down with something since. So, bit sore today. It is Monday, we're getting there though. We rolled out of bed. Oh my god, I slept like a log last night, but it must be just my body just going, you're too old for this, man. You're too old for this. But it is what it is. I love you a long time. Hope you're doing really, really, really well. If you want to like what I do, then, the subscribe button is down below. If you are new here, then please do subscribe. We are nearly getting towards our 15,000 subscriber target for the rest of the year. If you could help me get there, that would mean so much to me, man. Thank you so much, if you can. And if you think any of your friends will get any sort of buzz or good stuff out of my videos, then make sure you send them over to them as well. And you can help me out that way. I love you all. You do a lot for me, and, as I like to do a lot for you. It's a reciprocal relationship we've got going on. Anyway, now that I've weirded you out a little bit, let's jump into Hobby Nightmare, shall we? Princess Dish Towel says, "Hi North, you can call me Princess Dish Towel. Lol. Okay, I will. No problem. Love the channel, as I recently started watching after hearing about you from an opponent in a tournament I attended. Just wanted to give you a short story that isn't really a nightmare. Well, it kind of is, as you'll see why. I got into 40k about 2 years ago with my friend group and about 8 other people. It was an exciting time for all of us, since having that many people doing everything at once had no shortage of good times to be had in the group. This was the tail end of 8th edition. I started with Tau, but then decided to dedicate myself to the Chaos Gods and the Demons of Chaos. At the time, I worked a job I really hated. Okay, fair enough. It was underpaid and overworked. You weren't a Games Workshop manager, were you? Things weren't great for me financially, and seeing all my other friends dump their money into getting everything all at once for their armies was a bit of a spirit killer, yeah, I can imagine, as I could maybe afford a box or so every week. That's still a lot, man. A box of models every week. That's a lot. That's more than I can do. The routine was, every Friday, I would finish my shitty job, drive over to my friendly local game store, buy some paint, and maybe a box of Plague Bearers or Nurglings, and build them throughout the week. As I did this on a consistent basis, there was always the same employee working Friday nights like clockwork. We'll call him Steve. Steve himself was a Demons player, and given I was a new player, always gave good advice on how to play them properly, and what to expand on, models-wise, in my collection. He never forced a sale, never did anything else, like just overall he was a really great dude that was just helping a hobby noob like me. Oftentimes, almost all of the time, I'd vent to him about how shitty work was, or how things were going at home. I was living in the ghetto in an apartment and struggling to make rent, but I gotta have my models, bro. Genuinely a really stand-up guy. Fast forward a couple of months later, I had amassed myself a pretty decently sized Nurgling demon army, and decided I wanted to try out a Monster Mash list of greater demons. Perfect time, considering tomorrow was my birthday. At work that day, I made a slight miscalculation when ordering inventory for our store. By that I mean a huge F-up. I won't go into it too much, but it did result in a couple of yelling matches with my boss, and him deciding that to correct the mistake, he was going to have to take 400 out of my next paycheck, wow, to make up for it. 4 days before rent was due. Yeah, I'm not sure that's legal, dude. I'm not sure you can legally do that. You need to look into your contract. Right, it's why you should always, guys, a bit of advice. Always, if you're in a job, whether it's especially if it's retail or service industry where you're treated like, dirt, make sure you look at your contract, okay? If it doesn't say in your contract that he can take money from you for mistakes that you make in the job, he can't do that, all right? Honest mistake is an honest mistake. He can certainly fire you, he can certainly discipline you with disciplinary action. That's not a problem, but he can't take money away from you. It's just not, It just no, don't let people do that to you, right? Anyway, it might be different in the States, but over here I know. Like, I've made listen. If you knew how bad I was in the service industry for getting stuff wrong, like in terms of drinks and stuff, dude. If I get a drink wrong in a bar and I give somebody a Diet Coke instead of a Diet Pepsi, the manager doesn't take that out of my wages, right? He doesn't take the lost revenue in having to make another drink out of my wages. Do you know what I mean? That's not how it works. I make a disciplinary, I make it shouted at, no problem. I may even get a warning, like first verbal, second verbal written, and then fired, right? That could happen to me. But I won't get money deducted from my own paycheck. Anyway, and one day before my birthday, reasonably, I was upset considering I was pretty much flat broke. I finished up work for the day and cried for an hour in my car, reasonably upset. I then had the great idea of going to my friendly local game store to buy some paint, just to try to have something to do later that night. I walked in the store and it was completely empty. It was about 10 minutes before closing time, and Steve immediately sees that I had tear streaks down my face. Oh God. You must have been wearing mascara. He asked me to sit and explain what had happened. I vented in there before, but this time it was a really nice session of him just hearing me out whilst I unloaded my baggage on him. He really could have been a therapist, with how good he was at listening and giving advice. After I finally feel a little bit better, I get everything out, about work, life, everything else. I look up the clock and realise that it's almost an hour past closing. Nobody had come into the store, and all the lights save for one were on. I quickly apologised and said I shouldn't have kept him this late, but being the great guy he is, he just said that it didn't matter, and some days you just need someone to listen. I told him if it was already. I told him if it was alright. I asked him, this is me reading somebody else's writing when it goes a bit higgledy-piggledy. This is how it goes. I asked him if it was alright if I bought some paint, and he said of course. Feeling slightly embarrassed, I started small talk with him as he rung up a couple of pots for me, telling him about the demon list I was planning. As he did many times before, he gave me good advice on loadouts and stuff like that. I asked which was better for the Keeper of Secrets, the shield or the whip. We kind of got confused at whether you could take them both at the same time. And whilst I'm rambling, he just says, go grab a Keeper off the shelf and we'll take a look. I'm sure you can see where this is going. As I look at the box and ramble on about weapon options, he scans the boxes and paints and swipes his credit card faster than lightning, puts the goodies in a bag and says, "Happy birthday, man." I was starstruck. I could feel the tears welling up. I didn't know what to say after that long, exhausting night, so I just sighed and smiled and said, "Thanks, man." I then walked out and started driving home. At this point in life, I was kind of bitter. I guess you could say depressed. Nothing in life was really going my way, but what Steve did for me was a humanity restored moment. I drove back home smiling and feeling much better. My friends were out of town on a Disneyland trip without me as I couldn't afford it, but I was excited to spend my birthday alone building this new model Steve had bought me. And then my tyre popped. I pulled over, oh no, I pulled over after almost dying in a car crash, and sure enough my tiredness blew up on me. I called my mother to pick me up, and how I actually spent my birthday was getting a new tyre and putting it on my car. But overall, Steve made me feel so much better that I wasn't too upset about it. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I heard that Steve had... Oh no! No! No, not today. Not today. Feeling really rough. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and I heard that Steve had passed away. He had some type of illness, and he didn't make it in the end. I never got to tell him about the awful but slightly funny experience of my tyre being popped, on top of all the dumb stuff that happened that day. I wish I wasn't as busy as I was so I could have told him how much it meant to me. That was the first and that was the last time I ever saw Steve, and it really fucked me up. I still have that same Keeper of Secrets, and I don't think I could ever part ways with it, even if it isn't painted. Life is going much better now, and I even got myself a lady who I plan to wife here soon enough. She plays 40k. And I'll never forget that sometimes there are just good people in this world who do good simply because it's the right thing to do. By the way, here's a funny pic. Feel free to put it in this video if you feel the need. Much love, Princess Dish Towel. Is it? Oh, this is great. Alright, yeah, I'll put this one up. This is great. Okay, let me just... Oh, God, that was a bummer of an ending, man. I thought it was going to be one of them bog standard humanity restored, you know, stories, but apparently not. There you go, folks. So, you know, always keep the receipt of your hobby nightmares if you've got them. There you go. One Keeper of Secrets and one busted tyre. Deary, deary, deary me. I'll keep that on there for a while, why not? Anyway. Moving on. Ninetales Not Pokemon says, "Hey North, thanks for all you do with the channel first, it really helps a lot of people. So, secondly, I have to say that the Games Workshop store I go to is nothing like what is described in some of the not so great hobby nightmares. It's an amazing place with an amazing manager. Let's call him Mike. Top bloke, very jolly, and lives nearby to the store with his missus. He's freely told me a few times that he was on his own. If he was on his own there was no way he could afford to work for Games Workshop. They pay that little in terms of wages. Basically, what he earns is like pocket money to him and his family. It's holiday funds, savings, kids' school gear, extra costs, things like that. That's what he covers. The rest is covered by his wife. Okay, fair enough. You would never know, though, by the way he runs his store. The man is an absolute machine. He even came into the store anniversary really sick with a cold, pre-COVID, because he was determined to see it through and not let anybody down, which is something similar to what I think you've said in the past. Yeah, it is. So, on one of my store anniversaries, yeah, I literally had to, I've been advertising this thing for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and the numbers were going up and up and up and up of orders that were coming in and all sorts of other things, and then I got a really bad cold, a really bad one. The kind of cold where it's literally, you know, transcending ache. You're not achy anymore, you're just literally bunged up, and you just got this, and it was horrible. Horrible. It was a retail cold, you know, the really virulent one. Not nice. Anyway, he had booked a week off after the event, so it would have been easy for him to just go his own way and not turn up. But he didn't. He turned up and got shit done. Cool, man. Not only that, but he goes well out of his way to make sure those coming into the store and the hobby get the support they need. I have seen him giving away brushes, pots of paint, and even White Dwarf magazines to young lads just starting out on their hobby journey. The look on the parents' faces when they see the price of the magazine, and they are like, "Wow, are you sure?" To which Mike just shrugs, smiles and says, "Call it a gift from us here at Games Workshop. And well done for finally taking the plunge and getting into the awesomeness of the hobby." That's just the kind of guy he is. So, when I say that this manager does not deserve shitty customers, I really mean it. Let's talk about Stefan. When Mike took over the Games Workshop store here, Stefan was essentially the top dog. He was the outgoing manager's best friend and could basically do no wrong in the store. He was a bit of a slime ball with the ladies of the store, of which there were only 2, but that was in all honesty one of his minor offences. Others include, oh my god, he's listed them. Others include, number 1, I love a good list, me. Number 1, shouting at opponents during games for using completely legit tactics against him. Only his army, Space Wolves, was allowed to do the overpowered stuff in its codex. If any opponent tried any sort of strong combination from their own codex, they would be labelled as meta chasers, quote unquote, or dirty math hammer spreaders, quote unquote. Number 2. That's like the height of hypocrisy. It's horrible. Number 2. Ridiculing the paintwork of others. Stefan had a job that paid reasonably well, and so he got his army painted by Siege Studios and other professionals. They did a really good job. Anyone else trying to paint their armies would be met with scorn by Stefan, who pointed out how crappy their models looked, even though they were nicely painted. Again, this guy has a real issue with hypocrisy, it seems. Honestly, not very self-aware. Number 3, he would go after newbies. This is a common theme with this kind of chode. Any new player in the community or store, and Stefan will be over there challenging them to a game, but not if they were new to the store but not the hobby, only if they were new to the hobby in general. He would win said game, usually through shenanigans, and just shrug and state, "Heh, get good scrub," before moving on. Number 4. Any discussion of a video game in the store would result in Stefan shouting across the store about how Dark Souls did it better and it was the best video game series ever made. Not hobby related, but it happened enough times that I need to include it. It soured my outlook on that Dark Souls community for a long time, as he was not the only one of them with this kind of attitude, and most of his friends also loved the series. I will say this here. Dark Souls fans, your games have a cool niche, but they are really badly made, clunky, and they look like shit games to play. Fight me. You won't though, will you? You will instead cry into your anime body pillow about how I don't get it, quote unquote. Alrighty then. Dude, that was a segue. That was a segue and a half. Wow, okay. Number 5. He would shout obscenities at Thousand Sons players. Like, literally. And this is what made me think that most Space Wolf players are basically normies and schoolyard bullies who somehow found their way into the hobby. The Space Wolves get a massive win in the Horus Heresy, despite looking like idiots for attacking the Thousand Sons at Horus's behest in the first place. And yet their fans still feel the need to rage and rant at Thousand Sons players, even though the Thousand Sons players took a massive loss in that situation. And even before Magnus came back, they were still doing this kind of behaviour. Why? Good-natured comments and back and forth jovial barbs about the lore, that's all good. Actively going out of your way to shout and rage at fellow customers for simply liking Thousand Sons, that's some fragile masculinity Space Wolf bullshit right there. The thing is, Mike, the manager, was a Thousand Sons and Grey Knight player. You may as well have just designed somebody in a lab to piss Stefan off. Okay, alright, let's have a look. Let's see where this goes. Let me take a quick sip of tea. There we go. Right. So, they were destined to clash eventually. And they did. Barely a week into Mike taking over the store, he had cast a baleful eye onto Stefan's antics. Stefan was going well out of his way to be a bigger chode than normal. It was almost as if Stefan was asserting his dominance and testing how far he could push this new manager. One day, though, he flew a little too close to the sun. Mike was painting Kaldor Drago at one of the painting stations. A decent conversion of him anyway, looked pretty amazing, cobbled together from other bits and pieces from Space Marines. Stefan walks beside his table as other games are going on. He looks at Mike with disgust, blowing out of his fat red cheeks. "What is that?" He points to Drago. Mike smiles. He says, "This, my oval friend." It's brilliant. Oh my god. Oh no, my side hurts. I can't laugh too much. Ugh. Okay, he says, "This, my oval friend, is Supreme Grandmaster Kaldor Drago of the Grey Knights, most powerful of the warriors of the Imperium." Oh my god, that is a barb. That is like Red to a bull with a Space Wolf player is going to start rending his garments. Stefan takes the bait, of course. He rages about Matt Ward, of course, trying to find any purchase to pull down Mike's enjoyment of something Stefan clearly doesn't like. When he was done, after a minute or two, Mike was still painting and hadn't looked up at him once during the whole diatribe. "And yet," Mike says, licking his brush and swapping it for another one, "Drago could still beat Grimnar with his eyes closed. In fact, let me steal a quote from a game that I like. The only time Grimnar could beat Drago is if Drago had both of his arms tied behind his..." Actually, no. Not even then, dude. Jesus Christ. At this point, someone went to move past Stefan to get to a gaming table. Alright, fair. There was more than enough room for Stefan to step aside and let him pass, unimpeded. Instead, Stefan jerked his motion in moving aside, knocking the table Mike was painting on so that a water cup went everywhere and Mike smudged a bit of paintwork. Mike looked up, clearly giving Stefan a chance to back down. "Oops, sorry," Stefan sneered. Oh, days. Oh my god. Mike stood up and, for the first time ever, he grabbed Stefan by the arm. Mike is a big guy, almost twice Stefan's size. He literally frog-marched Stefan outside of the store and read him the riot act in front of the entire high street. He told him he was banned from the store for his antics over the week, and that if he wanted, Mike would go in and get his army for him. Stefan demanded his army back, of course, and so Mike went inside to get it. Stefan stood inside the store, just inside, to wait. Mike stopped what he was doing and pointed to Stefan. "Close the door, would you please?" he said. Stefan went to close it, and Mike said, "No, from the other side, mate. You're banned, remember?" It's burn after burn. It's ridiculous. It was that brutal of a takedown. Mike gave him his stuff, closed the door in his face, and we watched him waddle down the street with his models, never to be seen again. He now frequents a local hobby store elsewhere and went online to complain on Reddit, of course it's Reddit, that the Games Workshop manager banned me because he hated my army, quote unquote, and, quote, "I was banned for having a lore discussion with the manager," unquote. All lies. I was there, saw the whole thing. Funny thing is though, he never brought this up to HQ, ever, or Mike would have gotten a phone call, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, thank you for listening, Ninetales. Cheers, man. That was awesome. That was catharsis. I love that. That was catharsis. At least it was for me. Alright. Ziggy says, "Good day, North. I hope I find you well." You find me on a 3-day hangover, my friend. That's how you find me right now. "I have recently found your channel and I'm really enjoying it. Being in this hobby for 24 plus years, I have numerous hobby horror stories and would like to share a few with you. Alright? Number 1. Oh, I love a good list. Love a good list, mate. Number 1. Loose Child. This was shortly after the release of The Hobbit Escape from Goblin Town starter set. Now, a little description of the Hobbit army I was playing at the time. It was Goblin Town. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't the best painted army that I have ever done, but I was super proud of it for 2 reasons. 1, it was the first army I have ever finished. And now, as a hobbyist, I'm sure you know what this means. Yeah, man, it is huge. Not just every model on the table painted, but nothing else in this project's pile of shame. A very rare occurrence in this hobby, I am sure. I am also proud of this army because I painted it in a single night. after my friends and family decided to go to separate New Year's parties outside of my friend groups, so I decided to paint it in a night with a bottle of whiskey and the Horus Rising audiobook, only stopping for a large one pizza. Okay? I've attached photos of this army for you to look at your leisure. Alrighty. There we go. Let me mark that guy down there. Let me whack this guy over there. That's not too bad. There we go. So, cool. We have a Goblin King and we have a Goblin. Let's throw them up there, shall we? Said Goblin. That's not too bad. Looks like a zombie Goblin, but looks pretty good. Way too big for the frame though. There we go. Zombie Goblin. That's pretty cool. Might look at that. And Goblin King. He looks. Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. But he just looks. He looks like proper confused. He's like, oh, why am I holding this stick? Love it. Love it. Keeping him on the screen. If you're watching this and, you know, you flick back onto your phone and you get a nasty shock, sorry about that. But, you know, it's what it is. I bet a few of you have seen your exes in this photograph. I know I am. Ugh. Anyway, a few weeks later, after this epic painting session, a mate challenged me to a game of The Hobbit, and I was using this Goblin Town army, led by the Goblin King, against the Gondor Rangers, led by Faramir. I met up with my friend on the walk to the store, and when we arrived, the store manager is talking to a couple who have a kid that is loose in the store. Not sure the kid's age, but he was definitely in single figures. The store manager sees us and indicates the table he has set up for us, and goes back to talking to the couple. My mate and I start getting our models out of our respective carry cases, and once I'm done, I notice that my Goblin King is missing. Which is weird, because I remember packing it first that morning and unpacking it at the store. Then I noticed that the kid was playing with it at the other side of the store. Oh no. Thankfully, the store manager realised what was going on and was able to get the kid before I did, and convinced the child to give him the model, which he then returned to me. I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to say or do when I got to the child, however, I am 1000% sure it would have been nowhere near as diplomatic as the store manager. That doesn't seem like a hobby nightmare, big one, right? But any of you who know what, you know, if you're really proud of a model and somebody just picks it up, it annoys you to no end. What if somebody picks it up and walks away with it? Kid or not, you lose your shit, right? You absolutely lose your shit. Anyway, number 2, Knobhead rage quits against Noob. Okay. Back in late 5th edition, when I was in my early to mid-20s, I once visited my local Games Workshop store for a painting session. I had recently moved to this area, so haven't yet integrated with the local community properly, so I was also hoping to use it as a networking session for that. And for that reason, I do not know the names of the people involved, so the names here are made up. Whilst I was sat there painting, a kid, who looked to be about 13 to 14 years old, comes in looking for a 1,500 point game and explains that he is new to the gaming side of the hobby and has had two games so far. We will call this guy Newbie for obvious reasons. Another customer, 18 to 19 years old, and according to the store manager, a regular for a few months at this point, happily jumps at the chance to play a game, saying he doesn't get many games in. I think nothing of it and continue painting. Now at this point, I would like to describe the layout of the store so you understand why I was watching the game. Basically, it had painting tables on 2 sides of each gaming table. Ah, that's a clever thing to do. So if you're painting, you can't help but overlook the game in front of you. and these two just happen to play on the table I am overlooking. That's a really cool dynamic to have. I like that. Keeps everybody... It means you got something to look at whilst you're painting as well. More stores should do that. That's a good idea. Newbie proceeds to pull out a 15,000 point, awesomely painted Death Skulls force, and Nob pulls out a totally illegal Smurf force. Ultramarines, for those not in the know. By illegal, I mean he had Marneus Calgar. 2 of them. 2 Calgar, 2 librarians, and a chaplain. I call him out on this, thinking that Newbie may not realise the illegality of this force, causing Nobed to get heated with me, as Newbie states that he is okay playing against the illegal force today, but would prefer not to in the future. This ruckus gets the attention of the store manager, who comes over to investigate. Says he'll let it go today, but in future he'll need a legal force if he wants to play in the store. Then he stays to watch the game, trying to ensure Nob doesn't pull any more tricks. Turn 1 comes around, and Newbie gets first turn. After movement, Newbie starts the shooting phase, and based on him not knowing what everything was in the Smurf army, he decided to shoot everything at the chaplain with the theory, it's a different colour, so it must be important. Nob really doesn't want this chaplain to die. He tries to increase the amount the armour save to 2+, it should have been a 3+, then take invulnerable and cover saves once the armour saves had failed. It takes the store manager considerable effort to convince Nob that the chaplain is dead. Once he accepts this, he literally scoops his arms around his army, and in a few sweeps, he's dragged his army off the board and unceremoniously into his carry case and left the store before we could stop him. What? At this point, the manager asks if I can take Newbie through a game and agrees that I could borrow the store army. I literally brought what I was painting with me. When resetting the board, Newbie realises that there are some models missing, which I concur, having admired his models before the game, and seeing that they were a full squad before and they are not now. We all have a look around the store before concluding that Nobed must have accidentally taken them with him. The store manager promised to ask Nobed next... Sorry, I love just saying it. The store manager promised to ask Nobed next time he is in if he has inadvertently taken them with him. The store manager loans him black bases as fillers for the game between Newbie and I. Newbie really enjoyed the game between us and thanks me for the game. Then hangs around discussing hobby whilst waiting for his parents to show up. Once they do, they also thank me for the game. A few weeks later, I asked the store manager if he had had a chance to talk to Nobed about the missing models. Apparently Nob got super defensive and stormed out, claiming he doesn't need to be accused of anything and wasn't seen again. But store manager compensated Newbie with a free box of boys to make up for it. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, the store manager's done the right thing. He's done the very, 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 very right thing there. Well done to him. Well done to him. Alright. Number 4. I know I skipped number 3. I'm going to read that next time. Number 4. A very classy lady. I thought I would finish this email on a funny, mildly not safe for work story. Alright. Remember, it has to be around, around the stores, around hobby stores and things. As I'm sure you and most of your viewers are aware, before the new website and the quite frankly appallingly bad pre-sale system that came with it, pre-orders were generally released at midnight UK time and were released simultaneously around the world. The main issue with this system was that most of the UK residents who wanted pre-releases would miss the limited edition items to other countries not in bed at the time. For this reason, our store manager decided to do a midnight opening for the, at the time, new Apocalypse release. Just want to point out that nothing was stopping us from ordering online at home at midnight. Those that turned up just wanted to support the store and its decision for being there. That's cool, man, that's cool. Unfortunately, the release night was the same night as the local derby, meaning there were a lot of drunk idiots wandering the streets. The local derby, is that football in terms of like two local teams playing each other? Or is it the derby is in the the horse racing. I don't know. As we were waiting in the store online order point at the approach to midnight, we hear a thud on the window and look around to see a woman's bare arse against the window as she starts urinating. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! I want to add that the lights in the store are on, so she would have been easily able to see us. The store manager makes to the door to try and get rid of her, but before he says anything, the police were out in force because of the derby had thrown her in the back of their van. Yeah, my granddad calls that van the hurry up wagon. It's quite funny. Or the Irish taxi. One of the two. Thankfully, by the way, if an Irish person tells you they can drink, they're lying. Right? Irish people can't drink. They just get very, very angry when they are drunk. Basically, 2 drinks and they're fighting. That doesn't mean you're good at drinking. That means you're bad at drinking. Alright? Cool. Now we cleared that up, I'll move on. Thankfully, everybody in the store was over the age of 18 and got what they wanted from the release, as well as a good chuckle over the woman. Would like to add that I love your channel and it's helping me get through a hobby lull. Keep up the good work. Regards, Ziggy. Cheers, man. Thank you very much. That was awesome. That was brilliant. That was a really, really cool way to end the episode. Alright, man. I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow for a rant, and tomorrow's is about Space Marines and how ridiculous they are in the hobby, lore-wise. Alright? See you tomorrow. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a good one. Bye now.